Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com Insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hi, folks. This is Bruce Hutchin, the host and executive producer of Whitetail Rendezvous, welcoming you to another episode. We're heading out to Pennsylvania. We're going to meet up with Brandon Pressley. And Brandon just loves, he's got a love affair with hunting mountain bucks, DIY, public land. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce, for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because, you're one of these guys that just likes to mix it up on public land. And even though there's over 9 million hunters in the state of Pennsylvania, you seem to feel that you can beat the odds and be successful. Why is that?
Just opportunity everywhere. I mean, the amount of public land that's available for anybody to go and hunt. Tons of bucks out there, tons of doe. I know PA's gotten a bad rap lately of not really having a lot of big doe populations, but they're pretty much just held in the little pockets. And really, your effort really determines your success when it comes to that. And it's pretty much what I love about it. The harder I work, it seems like the more success I achieve.
You mentioned pockets. Now, if we're talking about, mountain terrain, heavy timber, not a lot of ag, I don't think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So where would the does be hanging out in that type of terrain?
I like to hunt the top. I like the tops of the mountains. Number one, they're really difficult to access for a lot of guys who are out of shape. So that cuts down on the amount of pressure. It's pretty steep up there, rocky, nasty, deer feel safe. But you're also going to have your sections of mountain down low that just get overlooked because people just think there's not going to be deer there and they walk right past them. So it's just, it's like a constant scouting game, You really got to put your time in. But once you find them, you hunt them accordingly and don't put too much pressure on them. You can pretty much have your pickings.
Well, that's a pretty confident guy, if I may say so myself. You're on public land. Okay, I get it. Going to the top of the mountains because a lot of people won't put that effort in. They just flat won't. But the little honey holes that people walk by, that's more of intuition, gut feel type of thing, plus being able to read the signs. So let's camp there a little bit, and let's talk about those lower areas that have deer, but everybody walks by them. Why do they walk by them?
I think there's a pretty common misconception. People just don't think the deer are going to hang out that close to a parking area or a road. And then they just do. I mean, they don't get any pressure down there. They might even sit within viewing distance of a parking lot and watch the hunters walk up the mountain in the morning or come back down. And if they don't get bumped out of there, I mean, and they got everything they need, food, cover, a wind advantage, they're just going to sit and stay. So it's just one of those things you just kind of have to be on top of and just be aware of.
No, have you ever hunted deer in these close proximities to roads or buildings or parking lots?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had a little bit of success there.
Now, how do you do
that? It's like it's a fine line, too, because if let's say you get in there and you harvest a deer, whether it's a buck or a doe, you sort of spoiled that spot. I mean, they're not going to keep hanging around if they know that they've sort of been busted, so to speak. So it's like one of those ever changing things, like year by year. It could be hot one year and then cold the next. And, the following season, it turns hot again.
But
I don't think there's any real like distinct way to describe it. It's just ever evolving.
now, are you putting a stand up or is it spot and stalk?
I'll just go in, scout, and if I see something I like, pick a tree, or actually I'll usually pick 2 or 3 trees based upon the wind. I'll just go in with a climber and hang. If I feel real confident in that area, I might hunt it 2, maybe 3 times. But if it's sort of, I'm not really sure, I might just hunt it once, and if I don't see anything, then I'm out of there and I'm off to another spot. I don't really like to hang around one area too long. These deer are pretty smart, and they'll figure it out quick.
Yeah. Now, so you pull into a parking lot, let's say, and within a quarter mile, that's where you're going to hunt. Now, what do people say when they see you going into the woods and not climbing the mountain?
Well, I'm usually, if I'm going in the morning, I'm in there pretty early. I don't really run into too many hunters in the morning. If it's an afternoon hunt, I'm really cautious if I'm going to be hunting that close. I'm going to try to make sure that nobody else is around because I don't want to really spoil it too much. But it's happened before. I've run into other hunters, and I'll just tell them I was out that way. I don't really pinpoint where I've been hunting at.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I can tell you in 476, 79 shows, nobody talked about, hunting the parking lot, within a quarter mile or less of a parking lot. And, it makes sense because I can remember, some places in Wisconsin where I did a lot of hunting that I'd go and I'd hunt, I'd sit in my tree stand, then I'd come back and I'd have my headlamp on, and all of a sudden, less than 100 yards from the parking lot, there goes a doe. I can't say I ever saw any bucks, but less than 100 yards, all of a sudden I bust her. She snorts and goes her way. And I'm going, gee, I should have been hunting the parking lot.
There was this one. It was down below, lots of pines, and just a ridiculous scrape line. And this was probably 10, 11 years ago. And I had a trail camera at the time. Put a trail camera up on that scrape line, and I hunted 3/4 of a mile away. Come back down out of the mountain, and I was like, I want to check the trail camera on that scrape line. Now, that day that I was going to hunt down low but talk myself out of it, there was an 8-point there in the morning, and he's probably 130 class, and about a upper 130, low 40 class 10-point there in the evening on that scrape line. And this is probably 200 yards from a parking lot. So that's sort of when the light bulb went off in my head and said, maybe you should pay a little bit more attention to these areas. But it was a hard lesson learned.
Yeah, for sure. But, this is, to me, it's groundbreaking stuff. And there's other guys and gals out there that said, shh, don't tell the secret, because I've always heard that, especially during gun season, the Army moves in and they're busting bucks and does all the way to the stand somewhat on public land. But here, if you think about it and do some scouting, I think that's the critical thing. Pick your poison. You had a hot scrape line, and everything was there for deer to be there. Whether nocturnal or not, you wouldn't have any idea until you pulled your cards. But that doesn't definitely make sense. Now, let's talk about briefly, and we're going to get into trail cameras later in the show, but right now, so you hung a trail camera, but aren't you afraid of, Jesse James walking off with your trail camera?
Always in the back of my mind, always. Sometimes you just got to take those risks. But, I think about that theft all the time, and it's kind of gotten to the point where, I've sort of accepted if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I mean, fortunately, I've not had any cameras stolen, so that's always a plus. But guys they'll mess with them sometimes.
Yeah, and it does happen. Right.
Yeah, not necessarily break them, but they acknowledge that they see them, or they'll pull the card if it's not locked up to see what's on it. But no theft so far, so that's good.
Yeah, it is, and unfortunately, it happens out west in the mountains because more and more guys and gals are using trail cameras on elk habitat, wallows, old rubs, similar stuff that you do for whitetails, where they're doing the same stuff for elk. And, cards disappear is you know, cards disappear and
legs.
the whole thing disappears. I had a buddy, the person cut the tree down because he had it locked, or
Oh, wow.
and the guy chainsaw the sucker right off.
Yeah, it's
So
really
go
taking it to the extreme.
Well, it must have been a hell of a honey hole.
I guess.
And they didn't want him to, hunting their bull, and it's all on public land. That's for sure. So it's just interesting out there. And, I'll just say this and shut up. Just don't do that. One, trail cameras cost $1. I understand that. But, somebody had to buy that, and you go rip off a line of trail cameras. That's just not good stuff. I mean,
yeah, that's low ball. They spend the money for it. They spend the time to put it up there. They've got the excitement built up. I can't wait to go check it. And then they get up there and someone snagged it, and it's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yeah. And so we're going to move on from that. So we're hunting near. Okay, how do you pick your areas you're going to hunt? Now you said there's thousands of acres of public land, but how do you decide? Okay, where Brandon's going to hunt?
Well, you can look at topographic maps, saddles, benches, any kind of terrain change. The Game Commission now is doing a lot of these controlled burns and even clear cuts here in the mountain, which is just great. I mean, that's just spurring tons of deer activity. Keying in on those points, those transitions, the edges, everything like that. I do a lot of cyber scouting, and I'll just mark it. I got apps on my phone, mark points of interest. I'll get up in the mountain. I'll walk my way through the mountain on the different points that I have marked and try to find trails, rubs, bedding. Scrape lines up here are huge. If you find a good scrape line, it's almost guaranteed that it's gonna be back next year.
You're talking about scrape lines, not rub lines, right?
Yeah, just scrape lines. I've never really found a real concrete rub line through the mountain that has led me to some success. I mean, I'm sure they exist, but I'd rather hunt a scrape line over a rub line.
And you're talking three or four, five, half a dozen scrapes
I'd say
a line?
3, 4, 5, and they can be short-lived. That could be 100 yards, or they could stretch out to the longest one I've ever tracked was a quarter mile.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it was just huge. It just kept going and going.
So why do you think that behavior? Let's talk about that behavior, because a lot of places we've all heard of community scrapes, and you'll have a 10 by 10 scrape. I'm just thinking in some places I've seen a couple of scrapes lined out, but I haven't seen multiple scrapes. I don't know if I've just been in the wrong place or haven't been looking in the right places. But what's your thought about these multiple scrapes that, are signposts and rutting behavior indicators to us all?
Multiple scrapes with lots of licking branches that are torn up and in a condensed area, and I'm hunting it. I'm going to be on that late October, early November. That to me is prime. I mean, that's what I key in on that time of year. But the key for me, honestly, when I'm looking at those is not as much the pawing on the forest floor, but licking branches. I mean, if there's more licking branches, the better. And if they're twisted and tangled and snapped, I mean, that's something that really gets me excited. And that means there's a lot of deer hitting them. A lot of deer increases your chances of buck. The more deer that are on that, the more buck that are going to hit it.
And that's, that I'm just thinking here, with the orbital gland and all the things they do when they, on the licking branch and all that fuss, you must have a lot of deer, a lot of mature bucks that could be a year and a half, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 years old. But, to have that type of activity, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot more younger buck that use those than older buck. But there's I would say an older buck here on game lands is 4. You've got a decent amount of 3-year-olds, but they're all going to be hitting those scrapes. I got a lot of trail camera footage that have got me going on that, and you kind of learn what to look for through trial and error, and that's pretty much what keys me off more than anything is the licking branch, or branches, I should say.
Yeah. Now, have you ever just run out the, you figure out which way the buck's going, or then be going both ways, but figure out which way he's going. Have you ever backtracked to see where he was eating or sleeping or hanging?
Oh yeah. I And I try to look for beds too, and I've found more than my fair share of mountain buck beds. But it just seems like there's just so much opportunity for them to bounce around from 3 to 4 different beds. It's really hard, or it's been really hard for me at least, to be able to pinpoint one bed, to hunt a certain bed for a certain buck. I just don't see why they would spend, all their time coming back to a certain bed. So I just think they rotate their bedding areas. Even with food, with the abundance of acorns, I don't really think that they could key in on one bench or one ridge. It just seems like we just had pretty good acorn crop the past few years, that everything's just so widespread. And it's sort of why I like keying in on these scrapes. They just seemed a little bit more concentrated, and you can kind of, I don't want to say predict their movement a little bit better, but it just seems like the window to hunt those is a little more concentrated than if you would try to hunt a particular bed or the oak ridge.
Okay, tell me how you're setting up on this scrape line. You got a climber. I'm thinking climber versus hang on. So you got a climber, and what scrape do you pick to sit left, right, east, west, north, south, depending on the wind? Tell us about your setup.
Well, the top of the mountain, the wind's going to be a lot more consistent than if you're off the edge. And if you're middle or low, it's tough. It's really going to swirl on you. So I like to find something up top consistent with and anything along that scrape line. If it's a drawn out scrape line, it'll sort of pinch any kind of deer movement. You're just hunting a pinch point then along a scrape line. And if it's a cluster of scrapes, like you were saying, little community scrape area, just try to set up with the wind and best cover I can to my advantage. And, just sit and wait, see what comes along. Maybe rattle a little bit. I don't know.
Now, do you grunt?
It really is a waiting game.
So
if I have to, yeah. I've grunted in bucks before, yeah.
Because rattling,
they're a little bit weird.
Go ahead.
A little bit weary up here, though. They just high pressure land. Everybody's got a grunt call. You really gotta be careful with it. Sometimes they'll just take off on you.
How about the same thing for rattling? Because at the right time, if you hit it right, rattling is a blast. I mean, you'll see a lot of deer.
Yeah, I like to be a little bit more subtle with my rattling. I don't like to get too aggressive with it. I think if you're a little bit more subtle with it, you're more prone to get a reaction out of some buck that's close by, as opposed to being too aggressive. They're kind of like ears up, tail goes up, and then they're a little bit more cautious approaching, or they might just hightail it out of there. So I'm pretty subtle with that calling. I do.
So if you're subtle, then deer's got great ears, and if the wind's right, it's going to carry. But is a lot different. Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, when you snort wheeze those suckers, they're loud.
Snort wheezed the buck before, and he took off like I slapped him in his hindquarters.
Because he probably got his ass kicked. He probably got his butt kicked.
He had nothing to do with it. He was out of there. So that's the last time I did that.
I was at the farm, and I got one little stand. I just love the hunt. It's so pretty, whatever. And so I'm rattling, and I see this 8-pointer come through, and I'm rattling again, and then he kind of stops, and then I snort wheeze. He just like you said, he was gone.
I'm gonna get some ego.
And I talked to my buddy. He said he got his butt kicked by somebody because I'm loud. I am loud. I can put it really down. They're going to be 10 yards from me to even hear me. But for the most part, I'm pretty loud and banging. One of my buddies said, "You sound like Muhammad Ali, fighting, just cracking it." But that's one nice thing. And listeners, just we're kind of meandering around here tonight, but that's one nice thing. It's your hunt, it's your technique. And if you get something working, I don't care what the guys at the bar, at the shop, at the school, at work, I don't care what they say. If it's working for you, keep doing it. Your thoughts on that, Brandon?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's, and don't be afraid to try some. I've a lot of trial and error involved with everything, with bow hunting. And if you find something that works, try it again. If it keeps working, just keep doing it.
And so many times, listeners, we're afraid to scare that buck away. And don't do that to yourself. Just enjoy the experience and learn. just like Brandon sharing some, some great tips. He's learned a lot by trial and error, and that's the only way to do it. And just go out and fail a lot, and all of a sudden you're going to get better and better. I know that, 100%.
Absolutely. You can't go into the woods or the mountain and be scared of trying something. You might lose your opportunity that way. Nothing wrong with trying it once, and you never know what might happen.
Now talk to me. It's 3:00, 4:00 in the morning. It's dark. Do you put your headlamp on to go up the mountain?
Yeah. Yep. And depends where I'm at. If I'm going to use like a subdued red light, or if I need to like high beam it to make my way through the terrain. But the closer I get to my stand, the more cautious I am. Obviously, you don't want to be crashing through the mountain. And when I get to my stand, it's red light only. You don't want to have your high beam 500 lumen headlamp shining around when you're about to set up. Just
now,
in case.
Do you have to set up every time, or in Pennsylvania you can leave your stand out?
You can. You have to, I think, put your CID number on, which is on your tag, and a name, and I believe a phone number if you're going to leave it up there. But I'm in and out every day. Take my stand with me and haul it in, haul it out. That's how I hunt. Even if I'm going back to the same area, I'll haul it out. It's just how I am. Just my preferred method.
Now, are you using hang-ons or climbers?
I have one of each. I prefer my hand climber, my lone wolf. I'm just more comfortable with that than anything, but I have climbing sticks and hang on if needed. But a lot of these trees I can get up with my climber, but there's some situations where the tree's just too small and you have to use a hang on, and that's pretty much why I have it as a backup scenario.
So let's break down an area. So you think you'd like to hunt an area. Do you do Google Earth or other apps before you go in, or do you go in and do a speed scout and either confirm or eliminate?
I'll look at it on I have like an app called My Topo or Topo Pro, something like that. I'll go in, mark points of interest where I believe I might find something, and then might go in and either confirm if I was right or wrong. And I'm constantly marking scrapes, bedding, heavy trails. I will even mark other tree stands that I see, or if I come across other people's trail cameras, mark those on my my app as well. And when I look at the big overview, I can kind of get a feel for what's going on. Okay, this tree stand and trail camera that I saw is close to this parking area. That's where that guy's coming from. Sort of formulate a plan on how I want to access the hunt, and go from there.
So you go in, you scout it, you see some sign. And then how do you figure out how to get right back to that place? You just pin it with GPS?
Yeah, I will. I'll do like a go-to. I want to go to this waypoint. It'll give me straight line distance or whatever. I don't always go straight line, but I find out how I want to access it, which way I want to go based on the wind direction, where I feel the deer might be, and the best way for me to get to that stand. And like I said, I might hunt that stand once, and that's it. Or, I might come back 2, maybe 3 times. But I don't really like to hunt the same tree or the same area more than 3 times, maybe 4 times at most. And I like to stay pretty mobile.
So why is that? 3 sits, 4 sits, I'm out of here?
A couple reasons. Number one, the deer are pretty good at figuring out the pressure up here. I mean, that's their whole existence. They've been pressured from day one. Through archery season, a ton during rifle, a little bit late season. They keep smelling you, or they come across your ground scent, and it's going to be, it ain't going to be too long. I mean, they're just going to be out of there. Number two, like I said, you got tens of thousands of acres of mountain land up here. And why should I limit myself to this one little spot? Got to spread myself out and see what's available.
So I hear you saying that. So in August, how many places do you have set up that you want to hunt?
Oh, by August?
Yeah.
I would say, I would say I'd usually have like 5 or 6 areas. And in each of those areas, I will have 3 to 4 quote unquote stand locations that I want to hunt.
Yeah.
And then there's the, there's the always ever changing in season scouting, which could throw another loop into it, could create another opportunity for me.
So basically, what I hear you saying, you got 15 to 20 setup sites. Whether or not you're going to use it or not, who knows? Depending on the wind. I mean, there's a lot of variables that are going to, going to hammer that. But then, how do you decide, your rotation? I guess, for lack of a better word, because you got plenty of places to go. Now we got to put them on a rotation so we don't burn them. And I like, 1 or 2, 3, 4 sits at most, and I'm out of there.
I usually have a good handle on which bucks are using which area, and it's just kind of rotate. Sometimes I just get up in the morning, I think I'm going to hunt spot A, and that's where I'll hunt, and maybe the next day I'll hunt spot B. Pretty much wherever I want to go is where I want to go. The wind for the most part in the fall is pretty consistent, so it's not too much of a game changer, although sometimes you get an odd wind here or there, and that might play a factor into how I hunt certain areas, but pretty much just go with wherever I feel like I'm going to have the best opportunity that day.
So the forecast says on Thursday or Friday that a front's coming through. So now what do you do? It's Tuesday night. You hear the weather report, a front's coming through on Thursday. One, can you get off of work if in fact you do work? And then 2, how the heck do you decide from all your potential sets where you want to be? Because as you know, fronts are great.
I assume we're talking cold front.
Right, cold front.
And what time of year is it?
Late October. Yeah, it's before the rut.
Hunt whatever scrape I feel like is going to produce. That's what I'm going to be on. If there's a cold front late October, based upon my early fall scouting, with trail cameras, find which bucks are in which area, and that's how I'll approach that.
Now, were you doing all day sit?
Late October?
Yeah.
If I can, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because in a cold front, the barometric pressures, you're going to have a big delta in that, and the bucks we know are going to be moving, and they're not chasing yet. They might be seeking, or they might be just opening up scrapes and and setting the stage.
More often than not, you're pretty much just going to get your, late morning, early evening activity. But late October, you just don't know. Something could show up midday. So I would definitely sit all day.
Tell me a little bit about the buck over your head. That came out of Pennsylvania, I'm assuming.
Yep, that was 2009, I believe.
Yeah.
November 11th, which I've shot 4 buck on November 11th. That seems to be my lucky day.
You stick with it, right?
Honestly, I was hunting a scrape, and it was real cold that day. I don't know what the temperature was, but it was real cold. It was pretty early, 8:30 in the morning, I think. And I heard this crashing. I was like, what the heck is that? And this buck just came crashing through this blowdown. He didn't walk around it. He went right through the middle of it, came down, hit the trail. He turned, and he just came on a line right to that scrape. Got to the scrape, and I smoked him 15 yards. He ran and crashed.
He was completely clueless that you were, there was a human being within 100 miles of him.
Oh, yeah. No idea. Yep. He didn't know what was happening.
Well, see, persistence, being in the right place, right time. You're going to have to make sure you get off on November 11th.
Oh, yeah, always.
Because that's important. Let's switch it up and let's talk about your trail camera use on public land and the pluses and the minuses.
Well, I like to run mine on video mode. I don't like pictures. Pictures will sort of give me an idea of what's happening, but video with audio is the whole shebang, really. Huge learning tool. Mostly, like I said, I'm a big proponent of scrapes with hunting and trail camera use. I like to put them in easy access funnels, something that I can get in, put the camera up and get out without creating too much of a disturbance. And trails, edge trails, any kind of transition point seems to be another good one for me. But always video mode. That's the big thing right there.
Now, I haven't heard that. I'm just thinking back last few shows. So video mode, doesn't that suck up a lot of your storage?
Yeah, I run 32 gigabyte cards, Energizer lithium batteries. It's a little bit more expensive, but I feel like the information that I get from that is well worth it.
Now, how many minutes of video can you get off a card?
Well, it depends. You've got, I've got some Brownings that are like, full HD and they fill up pretty quick. And then, I got some lower end HD quality Brownings that, I can get quite a few more videos on there. But it all depends on the compression size of the video and the video length and all that jazz. It's really dependent upon each camera.
And doesn't it depend on the doe or the buck that's dancing around the scrape or doing whatever? I mean, on and off.
I like to run either 10 or 20-second videos, and I'll do like either a 5-second, 10-second delay, depending upon the setup and the area too. I mean, typically trails, I'd like to have a shorter setting for the delay because they're not going to hang around too long. Scrape, I might just have it on a shorter video and a longer delay because they might be there a little bit while. So just depending upon how I use them.
So you got this video. Did you download it all to your laptop or your smartphone, or how are you viewing it? And more important, how are you building up your storehouse or your journal?
I check them on my phone, which really just eats the battery up. So I gotta go a different route with that next year. I think maybe I'll take a tablet with me or something. Bring the cards home, sort through the videos, keep the ones that I want, delete the ones that I don't. It's a whole process, but yeah, I got my file, my folders of the different bucks. And I've got the in-season footage. I've got the post-season footage. I even have a separate folder that I have named Daylight Shooters, which is daylight shooter bucks during the season. Just to see if I can kind of decipher any kind of a trend in their daylight movement.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, they spend hours, when they got a lot of cameras and they're using photos. But, I mean, they'll from year to year, they'll watch, buck number 572 grow and become, a hit list type buck. And they become really familiar with them, and it's part of scouting. Not only are you watching the buck, but you're scouting and watching his behavior and seeing, what he's doing or not doing. And then the other thing is moon phases and barometric pressure and wind direction. How do you measure those with your videos?
Well, barometric pressure, I don't really pay too much mind to. Wind direction, I typically just use that to set up. I won't hunt a particular spot based off of a certain wind, thinking a certain buck will show up. I haven't found that correlation to be true up in the mountain. Moon phase, I don't know. I'm still on the fence on that one. I think maybe it plays a part, but honestly, the biggest thing that I found to kind of spur any kind of movement is cold fronts. Really, I mean, you got a front coming in, and it just is like boom, just sets them off. So that's the biggest factor that I look for.
Yeah, and there's tons written about moon phases, and some people do play the barometric pressure, and obviously the wind, affects. If your stand isn't in the right place, then you can't hunt your stand. And cold fronts, I think everybody, if they have to go to work on a cold front, that they're chomping at the bit to, get in their stand at least, for 20 minutes. 30 minutes, it doesn't matter, just to be out there because you just don't know. That could be any time in the fall. It doesn't have to be, after, October 26th.
I had a cold front come through mid-October this year during the, October lull or whatever, and it set them off. It was hot there for a couple days.
Well, yeah.
Temps were cold, but the action was hot.
So, Brandon, we've talked a lot about hunting. Obviously, you've got some, you know what you're doing. And as I understand it, you started archery hunting when you're 20 years old, and you're basically self-taught. What's that story?
I wanted more. And at the time, archery was my only way to do that. So I went out and bought a bow, Dick's Sporting Goods, and got it all set up there, and tried to get my hands on as many books as I could about archery and how to be a better archer. Started buying DVDs, pretty much all the Drury Brothers DVDs back then, and watched them and practice. First year I saw deer, didn't kill any, and I believe it was my third hunt of my second year of bow hunting. I blew a fawn in distress call. I had one come in, and I whacked her, and that was it, man. I was hooked.
It tastes good too, doesn't it?
Always.
Well, it's remarkable. Now, I'm assuming you're a solo hunter, but do you have a crew you kind of hang with and switch off, techniques and and talk about hunting with?
Not really. I may have a buddy that hunts some private ground close to where I'm at, but that's a whole different ball game. I mean, he's got deer out the wazoo, and I'm a couple miles away, and his deer are pretty hard to come by. So it's like night and day difference. But yeah, pretty much just go at it by myself.
Well, you seemingly, and you got one buck on the wall right behind you. Have done pretty well. Figuring it out, and I love how you broke down hunting the ridge tops and hunting the mountain tops, and not even worrying about the between stuff, but just getting right up on the top of the mountain, looking for saddles, looking for transition pinch points, whatever. And the biggest thing that I'm taking away, and listeners, you should, scrape lines, not just scrape here and then a scrape quarter mile away, but actually we can see multiple bucks are working the territory, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I think the key to that is you're gonna have your doe groups that like I said, we're in pockets, but if you find those scrapes near those doe groups, I mean the bucks, they know about them, and it's just a numbers game. I mean, eventually they're gonna show up. It hasn't failed me yet. Let's put it that way.
Well, lastly, I want to wrap up the show with explain to people, you touched on it, but how hard it is to get up to the mountain tops, again, not on side hills or anything, and why that sets you apart from other people in Pennsylvania, especially archers.
What was that again?
About hunting the mountain tops and why that sets you apart from other archers in Pennsylvania.
I think it's just an effort thing. You gotta work for whatever you get, and I think that applies to just life in general. And going to the top is difficult. It's not easy. You're gonna sweat, and it's gonna be quite a workout for your legs. And if you're carrying a stand and clothes and a bow, it's gonna be a workout for your back. And it's a physical challenge. It's a mental challenge. And then once you're up there to stay all day, I mean, that adds to it. And I think a lot of guys just really aren't that committed. And I think if they would show that commitment, it would probably pay off for them.
Well, I appreciate that. And we're going to wrap the show. So on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, Brandon Pressley, thank you so much for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks, Bruce, for having me. I appreciate it.
We're going to head north of the border and connect with Jason Dick. Now, Jason is the guy that if you want to go someplace, give him a call, because he's been to Kyrgyzstan, he's been to New Zealand, he's been to Africa, all over North America, and he's quite successful. Why is he successful? Because he's a hard hunter. Jason's going to bring some tips and techniques that if you're heading north of the border, you're heading to the Canadian Rockies or any place with Jason, he's going to help you get ready, get set, and bring that positive attitude. Because when I asked Jason, what's the number one thing people need to bring when they're coming hunting with you, he says a positive attitude. So you're going to have some chuckles, and we're going to have some fun with Jason Dick from Canada.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.